Hey everybody, welcome to the Modern Boomer Podcast special event. Today we are going to run the full footage of our interview with Marcus Mera. He is the head of marketing for Cygnus Entertainment, who is currently creating the game Colossal Cave 3D adventure with gaming pioneers Ken and Roberta Williams. Getting to sit down with Marcus is a special treat for me, as the very first video game I ever played on a PC was King's Quest II. I was completely enamored with the game. I loved the adventures, the graphics, the interactive nature of the game, and to find out that Ken and Roberta were coming out of retirement to create a new game was just an amazing piece of news that couldn't make me happier. I got a chance to play a pre-production version of the game, and when it was done, I got to sit down with Marcus and talk about his involvement with Colossal Cave 3D Adventure, how he got to meet Ken and Roberta Williams, and what the game is trying to accomplish and why. Stay tuned. So, tell me about how you got involved with the Williams.
Well, it started, as I mentioned before, I was a master jeweler in New York City. I had a factory. I was making designs for Harry Winston, Van Cleef, and all these different high-end designers. And then my team of who I had working for me, we won awards. We took second place in bridal, third place in fashion, and had the Gem Diva Award. The first time I ever entered a contest, I literally took first, second, and third. Wow. For Spectrum Awards, which is like really a high-end jewelry design competition. Anyway, so I got divorced, and just like most people that get divorced, you end up moving back with your parents, and you have to kind of reset yourself. So I moved back to Jersey out of Manhattan, and I got nostalgic just by being at the house. I started thinking about Commodore 64s, and I started watching 8-Bit Guy and Metal Jesus, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go buy one. So I went to Facebook Marketplace. I saw a Commodore lot for sale, picked it up. Missing the power supply, so I had to go buy another lot. Before you know it, I'm buying another one.
It together, yeah.
And I start buying another one, and before you know it, I'm like collecting these games. And you know, I guess it was right before the real, before COVID, before everything really took off. So I was finding for like $100, like 72 box games and like 5 computers and like amazing stuff like Maniac Mansion and Zach McCracken and all these really cool Lucas and Sierra games. So one day, I'm looking on Facebook Marketplace, and I see the original King's Quest in a plastic shell case, which is the IBM PC Junior version, which I know is the first release. So I'm like, oh man, I got to get this thing. So I messaged the lady on Facebook. I'm like, is the game available? And she goes, yes, it is. I go, how much do you want? And she goes, what do you offer? I hate that, but fine. I go, $80. And she goes, no, I have like maybe 3 more boxes filled with this stuff. I'm like, well, what do you want? No response. Hello, what do you want for the, no response. So just like anybody, typical guy, I have a burner account. So I switched to my burner account. I messaged the lady again. And I'm like, hey, is this available? And she's like, oh, hi, yeah, yes, it is. I go, how much you want for it? She goes, what do you offer? I go, $200. Right. And she goes, oh, that's great. Okay, yeah, sold. And then she gives me the address, and it's like 125 miles one way. So 250 miles round trip. Wow. And I'm like, oh. You got to want it. I want it. So I hopped in the car, and then you had to go right away to get this thing. So I went right away, went straight to her, drove a bunch of miles. We were going to meet at a McDonald's. I pull in, I get out of the car, and she's like, hey, aren't you the other guy from the other Facebook account? I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So I'm like, I'm here. So I basically pick up the box and had to negotiate a little bit more. And I took one box with me for $200. I get home, I lay out all the games, take a picture, and I post it on Facebook. And I belong to like some of these like collector groups. Yeah. And this really famous Playboy photographer / collector, Enrico Riccardio, messaged me, and he's like, don't tell anybody, now you have something I want. And as soon as he said that, I knew I had something special. I looked down, and it was this game called Adventures in Serenia, which is basically Wizard and Princess, which is the second game Roberta Williams designed, but was the first game, adventure game, launched on IBM. So I had it, and I'm like, man, these are really rare. I'm not selling these things. I don't care how much you offer me. So I also belong to an Amiga group,
Okay.
Commodore Amiga.
Mhm.
So that day I go on the Commodore Amiga group, and Bill Winter, who's like a really known cinematographer and an Amiga fanatic, was like, I'm going to give a presentation at the Vintage Computer Federation. It's in 2 weeks. And that got me thinking, maybe I should give a presentation.
Maybe you should.
And I knew the vice president, so I called up Jeff. I go, hey, Jeff, I just found these 2 really rare games, King's Quest 1 for the IBM PC Junior and Adventures in Serenia. Why don't I give a little retrospective about, Sierra in the early days and on being on the PC Junior? And he's like, you always talk about computers, but never the software.
Right.
And he goes, great idea, Marcus. Oh, by the way, Ken Williams, the programmer, he's going to be also at the festival.
Wow.
And, I know who Ken Williams is, even though I wasn't like a major, fanatic as some people can be about this stuff and how I know everything about it. When you heard Ken and Roberta Williams, even as a kid, I knew who they were.
Right.
So I was like, whoa, holy moly. So I messaged Enrico. I'm like, Enrico, I'm really screwed right now because I have to give this presentation. Ken's going to be there.
He's going to be watching.
He's going to be watching. It's going to be thousands of people watching. And I'm like, I better know what I'm talking about. And he goes, why the hell did they pick you? So I go,
you're passionate.
I go, look, I guess, whatever. He goes, well, I know Ken Williams. He's one of my friends. I go, oh, really? He goes, do you want an introduction? I said, yeah. So he sends an introduction, and on Facebook Messenger, I get, hi, I'm Ken Williams. I'm like, hi. I'm like going to give a presentation. I want to sound smart. I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about. Like, do you mind giving me a little backstory on Wizard and Princess and, King's Quest and how this stuff evolved? He goes, well, it just so happens I just wrote a book. Why don't I send you a preview copy? And I'm like, great. So he sends me the book, and I read the chapters, and I gave the presentation. And I kind of thought I didn't do a good job, you always kind of your hardest critique, right?
Oh,
you're an artist.
Yeah, you're always
your hardest critic. So it's like, I didn't do good. But then I got messages from people saying, hey, Marcus, that was a great presentation. And Ken was like, oh, you did better than I did, and I'm like, oh, nice. So, I stayed in touch with him. This was I guess October. So I think it took me by December, I finished reading his book. And so, I'd message him periodically, and, sometimes he'd reply, sometimes he wouldn't. And then I just was like, hey, Ken, I just finished your book. He's like, what'd you think? I'm like, wouldn't it be great if you made a comeback like Steve Jobs did at Apple and bring Sierra back to new heights? And he's grinning, working on something. I'm like, well, it just so happens I'm a 3D artist. When I make my jewelry, I know how to model. And I can make really beautiful designs, sculpting-wise. It's like, oh, I didn't know you're an artist. I'll be in touch with you in a few days. I'm like, oh, nice. So a few days later, he's like, hey, Marcus, what are you up to? I'm like, anything you want, big boss. Just whatever you want. I had the time, and I'm just like, okay, I'm all in. Whatever you want to do, I'm here to make the game.
That is amazing story. Wow.
So I have zero experience making a game. He hasn't made a game in years.
Got to be over 25 years.
Yeah, so he was like, first of all, don't tell anybody we're doing this. So can you imagine, here I am working with 2 of the most famous
pioneers,
titans of video games, and I can't say a word.
Right.
And so I was unfollowing people that I knew I was going to blab to. I was getting off groups. I was, getting out of the chat rooms, and I went into a hermit mode. I'm a very neat person, and my friend came one day to my room, and it was piles of books, references, things, papers everywhere. He's like, what the hell happened? I'm like, I'm making a video game.
And look where you're starting. I mean, so many places, so many people start out with video games that make these small things, and here you're jumping into the genre with these Herculean figures in the video game history.
So can you understand the pressure?
Oh.
And
yes.
I'm like, I've never made game assets before. I made assets before, but I never used Unity before. So here I am. Don't even know how to install it.
Course, right?
Don't even know how to install it. I had to go through the whole process. He was very patient. And I said, why he's so patient is because he, he's not under pressure. He's not
Yeah.
he's not under the pressure of having to make money. So for him, he was very, very patient. So it took us like the first almost 3 weeks just to get a good workflow going, because the system of matching up the code and the art and things like that, we were overwriting each other like crazy. And I was making, so he was pushing like really hard. It was like, I need this section. So I'd go and you know, I'll learn how to make an environment with trees and you know, and I'll create this whole awesome scene. And because I paint like Bob Ross style, you know, I thought I had like really good eye for landscape design,
Right.
put the trees and stuff
Right.
like that. And then, you know, because I'd never played Colossal Cave before, and I play it, and then I'm like, oh, that's not right. It's supposed to be south, south, south. And so I would scrap it, and then I'd do it again. And I must have scrapped. There was times I made a really beautiful landscape, and then I had to scrap it and then do it again, and then it just wasn't as good the second time.
Right.
And then scrap it again. Then it was better the third time, and then I had to make the cave system. So I'm like, all right, how am I going to make the cave system? Ken was like, just use, you know, store-bought assets. But you know what happens is it's like I want to customize everything, you know. So then I figured out a way of, they call it like gray boxing, but I didn't know the term at the time. But I was just making basic sections that made logical how to build out the game. So we got to a point we built out the entire game, you know, in terms of like a gray box, not
Right.
finished art.
So gray boxing is more or less like just like where things will be.
Size of things, where
yeah,
things
just it's
are.
kind of like a rough draft.
Right. And I was exporting files like the geometry. I didn't really understand because I'd never had to work this way, because I was using like CAD software as opposed to modeling software. You know, my exports were coming in huge. So we had, at one point, one of the programmers was like, why is it so big? I'm like, well, I put the Colossal in Colossal Cave.
Yeah.
You know, but it was just wrong. It was just too big. Like I just made the scaling way off. And
Well, it's
those
a
are-
text adventure, so
yeah,
know,
but
there's a
it's
lot
just,
of-
no. It was just technical. Like I didn't know what I was doing in terms of how to export the file correctly.
oh, I see what you're saying.
You know, so it was a learning curve. You know, and so at one point, once we were told, okay, Ken was like, all right, we went from I'm gonna go with a pseudo name to maybe not even make this game, to okay, we're gonna make this game, to go ahead now, tell everybody we're making this game. So I go and I'm like on Twitter, I'm like, hey everybody, I'm making a game with Ken and Roberta Williams. Take a guess the reaction I got.
I would have to assume it would be pretty positive.
How about, you're full of crap. There's no
Oh,
way.
well, yeah.
They're retired. They're on a yacht.
Right.
Who the hell are you?
Right.
You're this jeweler. Like, it was like the total opposite reaction that I expected. I
Right.
thought people were going to be like, you know, congratulations. It was more like, you're full of, you know, bleep.
So I guess it depends on the audience. I mean, if I could see that point, because they don't you know, they've been so far distanced from the industry for a while, and you come out of the woodwork, a jeweler, and you're like, I'm doing this. Yeah, so I can see how that could
That
could
really
be
the
misconstrued
reaction
in
I
that
got.
way.
I was a little bit like, what? You know, like, and then somebody goes, well, I'm emailing Ken and confirming. And I'm like, well, go ahead, you know. And then they got the confirmation. Yeah,
Right.
it's true. I'm working with Marcus. And so they come back and they're all like, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, I'm so sorry. I'm like, don't worry about it. It's just, you know, get it right next time. All right, listen, trust me. The announcement goes out, and then
When did that happen, by the way? When
it was like around June last year.
Okay.
So the announcement goes out, and then I get this message on my LinkedIn from the guy that taught me 3D modeling. And he's like, hey, Marcus, this is Brian. I don't know if you remember me. I taught you 3D modeling. And I'm like, well, duh, of course I remember you. He goes, well, I just left Autodesk, and I'm working at Unity. I'm a huge fan of Ken and Roberta. I just thought I'd let you know. Say, hello, congratulations. I'm like, hold the phone. And he didn't even know we were using Unity. And I go, we're using Unity. You know, we chose Unity.
Right.
Can you go to your boss right now? I know you've only had the job for 2 weeks, but can you go to your boss right now and just be like, hey, I know the guy that's working with Ken and Roberta. You know, maybe there's some cross-marketing opportunity. Maybe they want to know the fact that Ken Williams has chosen Unity as the game platform of choice to do his first game in 27 years. Yo, right away. were like connected with everybody at Unity, like immediately.
That's awesome.
And it was like, you know, see, I was smart enough to use the password Ken sent me. It's nothing special except for the fact that I realize that if I use that password, doors open. And, you know, it opened. And now we have the help of Unity. They launched us at the GDC. They gave us a booth. I mean, it was a massive show. Now we're going to be at the PAX West. We're going to be at the Tokyo Game Show. We're going to be doing some big stuff. You know, we have a PR firm now. We have 21 people working. The artwork has been redone, you know, and it's like looking amazing. So really exciting stuff.
Oh my God. I can't believe that. I mean, for me, the whole reason why I'm effectively here today is because of my start in PC gaming, which was King's Quest 2 at the time. So this is a very interesting way to come full circle in my life, because now I get to sit down and talk to somebody who is in line with the developer that made me start this hobby.
I'm not gonna lie, that's not the first time I've
ago.
heard this. So pretty much every meeting I've been in that's game related, I've gotten the same exact response. Marcus, if it wasn't for Ken and Roberta, I wouldn't be in this job.
Right.
Marcus, because of Ken and Roberta and their games, has inspired me to be in this industry. Heard this literally, virtually every time. And to me, I realize, holy moly, I am one lucky ducky that I hooked up, and I'm actually working on this project. And sometimes I have to like pinch myself, like, is this real? You know, and I tell some of the people that are on the team, I'm like, you realize who we're working with, right? Like, do you understand we're making video game history right now? Like, this is historic. Like, the fact that they're back, it's that big.
So when you said the release date for this is looking to be September.
Yeah, actual shipping probably like October, November.
Right.
But, you know, for the holidays.
And it's going to be first VR and then non-VR, or?
Well, it's definitely gonna be non-VR.
Okay.
But I can't comment on the platforms.
Got it. Okay.
The only one for sure that I can tell you right now is we're definitely on the Oculus, we're definitely on the PC, and we will be on the Mac.
Oh, that's
iOS. I mean, not iOS. It would be
OS 10?
OS 10, yeah, OS
Yeah.
X.
Excellent. So what other games are you into right now?
Me?
You just do the classic stuff, or do you do any of the new stuff as well?
Honestly, I don't have time to play games. When you're busy, like anybody that wants to get into video game career and thinks that they're going to be playing games all day long, it really doesn't happen.
Just don't have the time.
Yeah, if you really love playing games, don't make a game.
So
you won't be playing it.
My hobbies have been PC gaming and PCs and technology, and I'm actually a physician. I'm an ER physician.
Oh, wow, cool.
So I have, all my life, I'm like, I don't want to get involved in this as my current job, because either I won't have time, or I might be like, I deal with this all day long. I'm not looking to do anymore. You know, if I worked with video games all day, I might sour myself and not want to play anything. So it's like I distanced myself from that. And this is as close as I'll get as our podcast, where we talk about stuff that we like to talk about.
Right.
And this is definitely Sierra titles have been on our radar. We only have 3 podcasts in so far. We're brand new, and probably 2 of 3 of them are big discussions on the old Sierra titles.
Well, they were a major influence, not just in the industry, but on a lot of people's lives. And,
yes.
You know, fond memories in childhood, and you know, little debauchery with Leisure Suit Larry.
Right.
All that stuff.
So I think that Sierra got eventually sold to Activision.
So I don't really know how that all went down. I do know something about the CUC acquisition, and then it collapsed, and then what happened to the assets after that is really.
Well, I assume that might be why they didn't revive the name.
I think they're moronic for not reviving the name. I think it's idiotic that they never. You have this IP. Why would you not?
Right.
Like.
Right.
Even if you were just to like redo the old games and relaunch them, like how hard is that for an Activision?
Right.
But I guess it's hard. I mean, you know, you hear the scandal that they're dealing with, and you know, it was pretty interesting because Bobby Kotick was emailing Ken,
in the beginning, and that was before the scandal. And then once the scandal broke, I'm kind of sending him the message. I don't think we should really. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's not looking good, and it just got worse and worse and worse. You know. So then I think Phil Spencer gave him a shout out, right? Like talked about King's Quest when they were announced that they were acquiring Activision. So who knows if this game really takes off? I'm pretty sure we'll get a phone call from Microsoft. I won't doubt it.
That'd be great.
It's gonna
great.
happen.
You
See,
think?
so far I've kind of predicted the things, and I'm pretty good at it. So I'm pretty confident.
You have a good track record.
I
so far.
really do. I really do. Because if you watch the earlier interviews, I said there's no way Roberta Williams is not going to get involved in this game with her name on it. My exact words.
Right. And isn't Cygnus the name of their boat?
Cygnus is the name of their boat. It's based on a constellation that in ancient times were used for navigation. So it, has a really. And she designed the logo, and she's really good. Like that logo looks awesome to me. It has the Sierra vibe to it.
Right.
And what's really great is that we do have the Sierra vibe. Like that's the process of designing games. I notice is not that different from 1980 to now. There is obviously the upgrade in technology there's certain things, but the basics of game design and knowing what looks right and what's playable and what feels good, and she has that. She has that magic. She's, I do look at like, she's a wizard. Like she just has this magical ability to make things. And sometimes you question like and that's like with any artist. Even people would question me when I'm doing a design. Oh, I don't know if that's the right. And I said, just wait, it's gonna get there. It's gonna get there. And then by the end, you're like, oh wow, that's beautiful. It's kind of like in the beginning with her too, because she hasn't made a game in a while. So it took her a little while to know what she really wanted. Or how to express it, or she had a right to change her mind. Like 1 minute this dwarf looks good, next minute doesn't look that good, let's make a different dwarf. So, and I'm okay with all that because that's part of the process of design and making something. Nothing is set in stone, and like any decision or any kind of art that I present is never an ego trip. It's always about what I believe or what I think is in best interest of the game, and then what the players really want to see, and the reaction that we're hoping to get from the kids.
Right.
And now it goes back to, I was trying to make the point was, at one point, Ken was like, do you think the kids are going to like this game? And I go, if it's just a 3D game, we'll have some of the kids liking it. This will be more catered towards the older crowd, the retro crowd, the Sierra fans, the LucasArts fans, the Colossal Cave fans. But if you want the kids, this game's got to be in VR. And I said, if Sierra was here today, this game would 100% be in VR. And it was as though a light bulb went ding, and immediately it felt a shift, and we're making a VR game. And that was like literally right after the announcement. And we pulled in a very talented programmer named Sydney, and she took my initial artwork, which was not optimized, which was not like game ready, and made it in VR. And I'm like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like looking at it, I'm like, I made all this. I'm walking in my world. I'm like looking at flowers, like going around, and it's all in 3D, and it's like super duper immersive. And I'm like, oh yeah, and people were like, you got to do it teleporting. I'm like, no. And Roberta doesn't want it either. We want to, you want to walk. That's why you were like walking in the world.
Right.
And people are like, well, I get nauseous. So that's why we did the tank controls, because that makes it less nauseating, minus the snap turn, which we have to adjust.
Right. But
the motion, and it feels smooth. And that's why we have to maintain 72 frames for the frame rate. And that's not an easy task.
And that's to limit the motion sickness?
Right, because you want smooth motion. You want everything to be smooth.
Yeah. I've read some about that as a physician, and it seems like certain people are completely unaffected by that, and then certain people are green the entire way.
I think it's a younger crowd will be less affected because they started early using it, and they get used to it. Of course, there will be exceptions to that.
Right.
I find mostly the older crowd has the nausea because they just never experienced something like that.
Right.
And, sometimes you're moving faster than they probably are used to moving, So there's a lot of reasons, but I think overall, the technology is getting better. we're getting better. We're inventing stuff. Like, I feel like, you know, Sierra was always a leader and not a follower, as that's Ken's what's the word? Ken's
Mantra?
phrase or
Yeah.
mantra.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like we're leading the way on this, because we did receive a lot of resistance in the beginning, and now people are kind of like, oh yeah, I see what you're doing. And it's kind of like in the beginning when Roberta was changing the interface and changing certain things. You're like, I don't know, I like it the old-fashioned way. And then you're like, oh wow, this is actually great. So, you know, that's part of the design process.
Right. That's great. I mean, I can't wait for it. I'll definitely pick up this game, you know, just for the nostalgia and the fact that, you know, when even in college, I used to start playing, when I started gaming, I was playing like VAX terminal games and Xerox, was a Lambda Park, old text-based games. And it was just, that's where everything started. And to see this like brought around to such like new technology is just amazing. And just to see these
It's not
guys.
gimmicky. Like,
No, it's not.
for me, like, there's some key words that are very gimmicky, and right now, metaverse is one,
Yeah.
NFTs is another, and in all honesty, I think even MMOs. You know, people miss the single player adventure where it's just you and the game, and you don't have to worry about other people, and you don't have to worry about buying land, and you don't have to worry about spending more money. You just want to enjoy the game and be immersed in it. I found I enjoy single player games the most. For me, I don't really enjoy multi. You know, it's not for everybody, but for me, I prefer single player.
Right. Well, it certainly will be interesting, and it's an amazing story how you can get involved in something like this and bring it to where it is right now. So, when is the next con? When is the next con
We're
you'll
definitely
be
going to be at PAX West.
Right.
We may be
You know
in
when that is?
Germany, which is going to be a little earlier than PAX West. That's like in August. So we may be in Cologne, Germany for the game show, PAX West, and then Tokyo Game Show, I believe. Those are the three main ones. We may be in something called Adventure X. I just got to get some more information on that. That's in London.
at? Okay.
And I'll be traveling to certain shows like Too Many Games and, you know, any of these local cons I'll probably go to. And, you know, I want to get a little carrying case for the headset. And,
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, so I'll probably go to some other cons. And I might do a trip to actual Mammoth Cave and experience the cave that inspired the game.
Oh, really? I didn't know it was based on a real
Based
cave.
on a real cave.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
The art is the art isn't. I initially tried, and then I'm like, nah, this is about a game. It has to be have a fun experience.
Right. Right. So, are there any new titles that are in the thought stages right now, or?
All I'm gonna say, because I really can't comment too hard on it,
Right.
is this. It started off, hey Marcus, I may pull the rug on this and not do a game, to hey Marcus, you know, tell everybody we're doing a game, to hey Marcus, we're thinking about a second game. That's all I will say.
No. Me personally, I would not want the gas to run out of the tank on stuff like this. So
I don't think so.
That
I
makes
think
me
it's
happy
like
to hear
they
that.
jumped on the bike, and you know, it took a while to get it going. You know, Roberta says like I kind of like a fisherman. I pulled her in little by little, and I kind of did because I knew she didn't want it, and I'm like, but she has to. There's no way that she
Right.
can't. I don't want to do this by myself, and you know, I want to experience her magic.
Mm-hmm.
So little by little, you know, we were asking her questions. I'll email her this. I'll see that, and you know, and more she was. I think the VR really sucked her into, because once she put it on her head and she's like, she remembers, you know, King's Quest 8 and the disaster it was, and it's not her vision, and you know, I think she almost sued for it to not to be released, and you know, she feels like hurt her reputation because it wasn't her vision.
That was the one that just came out like not a couple of years ago, right?
No, that was the one that was in 1998, 99, something like that, 97.
That long ago.
Yeah. That new one has nothing to do with Roberta.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, we have a little picture where it shows that we have to take it off. That has nothing to do with her.
Okay.
To now she could have. I remember an interview back then. She's like, "Oh, we don't have a camera that can fly through the environment. We don't have." Now you have.
Right.
Now you have those things, and I feel like now she's in a candy store enjoying all the tools that we can do now, how advanced 3D is, and her creative juices are really going now, and storytelling, and you know, she called us a family, you know, like there was a Sierra family, now it's a Cygnus family, that we're finally gelling, and we're finally getting things in production mode, and things are really going really strong. Artwork is coming out like, wow, amazing.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to chat.
My pleasure.
This was super amazing to be able to have this opportunity.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me. Go to our website, colossalcave3d.com, register, so that way you'll be the first to know with the actual launch date and any events that we have coming up. And I'll be doing some free giveaways. You got one of the t-shirts, and we'll be giving away his book. And I'm sure, if you know Colossal Cave, there's a lot of treasures.
Right.
You know, a lot of it is jewelry based, and, you know, I'm a massive
You're the jeweler.
jeweler.
That's right.